the essence of it is humanity.
We're not here to separate ourselves based on what we look like.
To listen to what actually um, the community wants and needs.
Well, we have to be willing to learn.
We're all human. We all desire love, respect.
My key message for building bridges, when it comes to building communities and solidarity, I feel that what we need to ask ourselves is to not put the labor on those that are already recipient of so many barriers and structural violence, but rather to critically ask and question yourself, what does allyship mean? And within the spaces that I'm part of, and within any ounce of power that I might exercise, whether it's in the workplace or whether it's within policies, institutions, government level, neighborhood, what are you doing to keep women safe, first and foremost? And secondly, what are you doing to keep women of African descent that are Muslim safe? I think we all need to challenge ourselves and locate our own privileges and not put the labor on those that are already recipient of violence. So what that would look like, if I went into a more concrete detail, it would look like, for example, creating funding streams for documentaries such as this in terms of awareness and understanding. It looks like non-Muslim people that are safe towards the Muslim community, that they themselves are people of African descent, Indigenous people, or equity-seeking, equity-deserving groups, to also figure out how to build alliances and solidarity. Because what happens is sometimes, communities that are most excluded are weaponized amongst one another, and we end up becoming laterally violent. So to get to know one another, because as a Muslim woman of African descent, it was Indigenous people, Cree elders, and Blackfoot elders that taught me who I am. So we're all interconnected. For people that are non-racialized, we need to figure out, what power do you exercise, and how are you keeping Muslim students safe? How are you keeping, your colleagues safe? And when I say safe, it's not a, means of superiority or the white savior, but more so of, creating spaces that is nurturing and cultivates conversations that are rich like this in a way that is genuine and sincere and centric.
If someone's struggling with their faith and they come to me, I always tell them, where you find love and compassion and mercy is where you find God. And so I feel a lot of people struggle with the nitty-gritty, tiny details of, even being perfect, the idea that you have to be perfect. The divine law is universal across all faiths. God wants you to be compassionate. He wants you to give charity. He doesn't want you to lie or cheat or steal. And so when people come to me worried about their faith and struggling with their faith, I really encourage them to find people and places that bring them joy, that bring them that peace of mind, versus the places that maybe bring the shame. So there's a difference between feeling guilty about an action and feeling shame about it. So the difference is I may do something and make a mistake because I'm human, but that doesn't mean that I am a mistake, which is shame. And so to create spaces and to hold people's hearts is really important to me. And so that's what I would share with them. I would say to build a bridge with all communities is to be able to find that human experience and to be able to relate to it, to understand that we're not here to prove who's right or wrong. We're not here to separate ourselves based on what we look like or the things that we believe. It's really, how can we find the love? That's really my message. Just like, where you find the divine love and you feel that pull, that joy, that's where we're going to unite. That's where we're going to come together, and people are going to start empowering one another. It's when we start separating ourselves from each other is when the bridges start to fall. And so I really believe that the foundation of all faiths is the same. The divine law is the same. And I feel like when we can start relating to each other on those basic levels, instead of having to fight one another or argue back and forth about who's right and wrong, we can find the love, and we can experience that no matter where you are or who you are, what you look like. And for me, that's really important.
Okay, one of the ways that we can build bridges is to ask more questions. In Islam, we are taught to be charitable people and be kind to our neighbors, just like many religions. And so I think it's in our best interest, for me anyway, as a Muslim woman, to accept people and be open to their questioning. I think it's really important to do that for learning, for if you have any questions. Like, again, there's a difference between ignorant and curious. If you're curious, there's no problem with that. The same way you would ask somebody if you're lost, or if you needed directions or help with something at the groceries or whatever it is, you would ask a question. And I would like to think that I'm open to answering those questions. If you see me on the street as a Muslim woman, I would answer your question. And even as a Black person, as an African, we are very hospitable people. And so I encourage, people to go to the masajid, go to the local mosque. We're everywhere. We're here. We're not going anywhere. And if you look around, you'll see us. We are everywhere. And we want to, trust me, we want to answer these questions. We would rather teach people than for them to have negative connotations about us. We don't want people to be afraid of us. We don't want, the judgment. So the only way, or the best way to do that, is to ask questions. So you're not judging a book by its cover. My hijab is not, it's who I am, but it's not the only thing about me. It's a piece of cloth. If I take this off or if I have it on, I'm still the same person. So I think that would be one of the best ways to help bridge the gap within Edmonton, in outside of Edmonton, in the Muslim community, in the non-Muslim community.
I think in order to build bridges well, we have to be willing to learn. So usually the first thing that I tell people is to be open to learning about different ways of being in the world, different ways of seeing the world, different ways of engaging with the world, and to do that with empathy, which is to say that even if I disagree with how you do it, I can understand enough. I've learned enough. I'm open enough to learning that I can see how you would understand it that way. That I'm open to the possibility that you and I are different and that we will see things differently. And not just that's okay, but that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing that we see things differently, because look at all the richness we can create. And I think when we look at our histories as humankind, the places where we thrive are the places where we are open to that kind of diversity, right? And so I think when we talk about bridge building, it is about being open to knowledge and being open to difference really, really intentionally from a place that's grounded in empathy, where I make space for someone's difference. And truly, I think it's about pluralism, which is the idea that we are grounded in our own uniqueness, but we can embrace the differences of others. And we can sit at the table with people that we don't agree with, and that we might not even like, honestly, which Adrienne Clarkson talks about, actually. But that is what builds healthy, thriving societies, right? Is when we choose to engage with one another.
From the years of community advocacy work that I've done, what I've realized is that in any work that we do, whether it's bridge building with other communities or from within our communities, it's always to do the work from a grassroots perspective, to listen to what actually the community wants and needs. And we can do that by, just being in community and listening, and sometimes having focus group discussions, or like this dialogue. We had a survey, an online survey of Muslim women, to ask them, like, what kind of programs do you really need? Sometimes, we may think like, oh, Sisters Dialogue, we're a group of diverse women. Yes, we're kind of representative of the community. And we say like, oh, we should be doing this kind of work. But what do other sisters want? What do they really want? So in doing that survey, we were able to discern, what are the needs in the community? And in that way, we can advocate for more funding in those areas. And similarly, when we do bridge building work, it's important that we realize that the work has to happen organically. Sometimes I know in the way the nonprofit sphere works, it's like, we have to cater our programs to meet certain grants. Like they're very like they put us in a box and like, oh, we have to do this kind of work. And we learned an important lesson because recently Sisters Dialogue, in collaboration with the Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues, we started this program called Edmonton Safe Walk. We received funding from the city of Edmonton and partial funding from the provincial government. When we started this program, then we realized that the way that we proposed it, it couldn't be, it wasn't going to be that successful if we didn't have relationship building with the communities that we wanted to reach. So we wanted to reach communities in the Northeast, and a lot of the women are already isolated, and some of them may have barriers such as childcare or language. So it's sometimes difficult to expect, they want the program. They want a safe walk program where someone can walk with them either leisurely, recreationally onto the river valley, or if they are feeling unsafe, to ride with them on the bus. They want those programs, but for them to access their programs, we have to also remove barriers, like ensuring that they have childcare or building that trust with them. So because we listen and because we approached it from the lens that what do our stakeholders want, we developed different programs came out of that. We had a moms and kids playground program, and we had women gathering, to build community and to build that trust, so that women will feel more comfortable to access the programs that we have built for them. Sometimes organizations come like, oh, okay, this group of demographic, they need this program, and we're going to push out this program, but then we don't assess the barriers or how we need to reach them. So I think one way that community work and bridge building work, whether it's within the Muslim community or with other communities, is to always take an organic approach and to be flexible to the needs of community. And that's when we can be really successful, when we actually listen. And that's something that Sisters Dialogue is doing, and I hope other groups and communities are doing as well.
I want to say, at the end of the day, we're all men, we're all human. We all desire love, respect, and, be cherishing each other and appreciating each other. And we just need to find what makes us happy and what makes us comfortable. And we can sleep at it, at the end of the night.
With the National Council of Canadian Muslims, we build bridges through a lot of avenues. We first start with, of course, our Muslim community to make sure we try our best to connect with them to make sure that, their voices are being heard, and multiple voices are being heard, because, of course, Muslims themselves are not a monolith. But we also connect with, different interfaith communities. I was just at a Mormon church recently, and it was very, very beautiful, a great experience. And we build bridges with the government as well, so that we can voice our concerns and, share what the Muslim people are going through and the struggles that they're facing. And we do that through every level of government, federal, provincial, and municipal, and just not a lot of nonprofit organizations as well. So we try our best to connect with everyone.
I hope the Edmonton community can come together just like how we come together in sports, where your color, your race, your religion doesn't matter, and we're all here for this one thing and enjoy this one sport. So I hope the Edmonton community can open up and realize that we're all here to just enjoy living in the city of Edmonton, and we're all here for one purpose, and just to do good in this world.
I hope that you have enjoyed this series, and more importantly, that you recognize that Muslim women face significant discrimination across Canada, including in Alberta and in our very own city, the city of Edmonton. Every day, visibly Muslim women face threats, assaults, and violence, and the onus is on us to put an end to Islamophobia. In 2021, the National Council of Canadian Muslims released 60 policy recommendations for federal, provincial, and municipal governments to tackle violent and systemic forms of Islamophobia. And through this series, I hope we can start by asking ourselves a key question. What are you doing or not doing as an individual to advocate for our Muslim brothers and sisters and to keep each other safe? We hope that through the powerful stories of the Edmontonian women that you've just watched and listened to, that you have found new insights, perspective, and inspiration to do better in building an inclusive city for all Edmontonians. Let's work together to amplify this conversation through open and respectful dialogue and strive to advance and embolden the untold stories of Muslim women in Edmonton.